Ooh, I met a little girl. Oh.
Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing the rabbit hole to end all rabbit holes, which is abrupt climate change. Of all the news stories out there, all the things and the doings and the goings and the comings, and the hot headlines that seem to occupy the space of every other news channel, this is really the only news that needs to be talked about or reported upon. And yet, most people don't even understand that this is going on. And what a crime and a travesty that is. Because when people understand what's really going on, it's going to be a very, very rude awakening. I just wanted to start with this little intro. Before I do, I wanted to let y'all know that I have I reset up a Twitter account for Black Bear. I had a Twitter account called Black Bear Party, and I would tweet climate change stuff and pretty radical things, but this was a couple of years ago. And interestingly enough, the account kind of disappeared from I use an app on my phone to control all my Twitter accounts. And it kind of it disappeared from my Twitter app. And when I tried to log back into it, it just would not let me log back in. I tried to log in on Twitter and they just wouldn't let me log in. They wouldn't send me an email. They just wouldn't let me access the account at all. So, which I thought very interesting. So I created another account. It's called Black Bear News, and it's at Black Bear News 1, the numeral 1. So if you want to come and follow me there, I would appreciate it. I'll just be kind of tweeting out news stories during the day, interesting things. It's obviously going to be what's happening on this channel. I'm going to kind of mirror what's going on this channel over there, but it's a Twitter thing. So if you care, if you're on Twitter, if you want to follow me, I'll be hopefully posting a lot of relevant stuff there. But what's interesting is when I set up the account, right after I set it up, I got a notice from Twitter, and they were saying, we've noticed suspicious activity and your account's been locked. And I was like, I just created the account. How can you lock my account? I tweeted one thing and they locked my account, which is so hilarious. So clearly Twitter doesn't want certain information to be out there. Twitter is definitely controlling what people see, and I've just heard stories about them shadow banning certain accounts and not letting certain viewpoints out there, and kind of just messing with people in general. But anyways, it's up, it's running, I got it fixed, and so follow me there if you dare. So what is happening? What is happening is we are terraforming the earth. That sounds like it should be intentional if it were desirable, but it happens to be haphazard, random, unintentional. As a child destroying a wall with a permanent marker because they didn't understand that it wasn't a blank canvas for them to express themselves on. The merit of childhood murals aside, we are supposed to be the adults in this world. We are supposed to be the wise ones, the careful ones. And as every day, month, and year go by, we, on the whole, seem only concerned with our own well-being, our immediate comfort and survival at the expense of everyone and everything around us. Those who would not engage in this humanitarian self-servitude are outcasts, strange, otherwise, left out of the reindeer games of the larger population who are diving headfirst into a future so full of promise, but more assuredly full of death. The question is, who will stand up to the powerful who insist that this is our path? Who will not join the others on this path? And addedly, who might stand in their way as they blow holes in the sides of the spacecraft called Earth that we all inhabit? Because isn't that what we do when a plane is hijacked? Someone has to grab the gun away from the madman, defuse the bomb, protect the pilots. What if the madmen are the pilots? What then? That is precisely the scenario we're in now. We are all on a plane. The pilots have gone mad. The passengers aren't quite aware of what's going on, but some are getting a funny feeling that something isn't right. The flight attendants insist that everything's fine. Do not leave your seats. A few near the front understand that the only way to save the plane is to take over the cockpit and take control of the plane and land safely with the little fuel that is left. The question is, will you be part of that crew tasked with the mission of saving the Earth? That is my own little editorial for the day, and what I wanted to do was move on to a really nice piece of writing by Paul Craig Roberts from the Institute for Political Economy. This is dated November 2nd, and then this is headlined, "Is the evidence of global warming too scary for humans to cope with?" I appreciate the numerous emails thanking me for providing an understandable explanation of the global warming scenario. The book, Unprecedented Crime, about which I reported, caused me to start thinking more seriously about man-made global warming. I already was thinking about it because capitalism owes its profits to the costs that it imposes on the environment, costs that are external to the capitalist entity. I have been thinking about this since I addressed external costs in my 2013 book, The Failure of Laissez-Faire Capitalism. I am thinking that if man-made global warming is indeed in the cards, as the current evidence supports, the external costs of capitalism will far exceed the total value of all the goods produced over the course of the Industrial Revolution. I'm going to read that sentence again. The external costs of capitalism will far exceed the total value of all the goods produced over the course of the Industrial Revolution. Past material comforts will be paid for by future curtailment of life on Earth. Greed, gluttony, envy, lust, and pride will have proven to be the 5 of the 7 deadly sins that were deadly for the planet Earth. I hope I can find the time and energy to get around to a book on the subject. For now, like you, I am learning. It struck me, as it strikes many of you, how a 1 or 2 degree rise in temperature can cause ice caps, glaciers, and the Greenland ice shelf to melt. We don't think of the Arctic or glaciers hovering on the temperature border of frozen and melting. It is not intuitive that small changes can make such large differences. Like you, I also found it puzzling that as carbon dioxide is only a small part of the atmosphere, how its increase can have such dangerous effects. While struggling to put what I've learned into understandable language, I thankfully came across this explanation in Scientific American. Small changes in the Earth's heat balance can lead to large climatic changes. For example, the ice ages during the last several million years and the warmer periods in between have been triggered by no more than different seasonal and latitudinal distribution of the solar energy absorbed by the Earth, not by a change in the output from the sun. The geologic record shows that the differences in ice cover, sea level, and precipitation, as well as in plant and animal populations, were quite dramatic between the ice ages and warm interglacials. Yet the global average temperature differences corresponding to these radically different climates were only about 5 degrees C in the tropics and 8 degrees C in polar regions. In case you don't understand what is being said, the message is that very small differences in temperature are the difference between ice ages and heat extinction ages. Scientific American asks this question: if carbon dioxide makes up only a minute portion of the atmosphere, how can global warming be traced to it? And how can such a tiny amount of change produce such large effects? Peter Tanz, a senior scientist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Earth System Research Laboratory, provides this answer. Read it and you will understand. Keep in mind that however small the temperature changes seem to you, that it is not a theory but an observable fact that Arctic ice, the Greenland ice shelf, and glaciers are melting. Indeed, many glaciers have completely melted away. They are no longer present on Earth. Ocean acidification is also an observable event. Weather.com reports this from the just published Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Human activity is dissolving the world's seafloors, raising alarm for the future. Typically, the seafloor is milky white and comprised of mineral calcite. Today, excessive carbon emissions have turned the milky white seafloor a murky brown in some hotspots, such as the northern Atlantic and southern oceans. Ocean acidification driven by human activity is dissolving the world's seafloors at an alarming rate, a new study says. Typically, the seafloor is milky white and comprised of the mineral calcite, which is formed from the skeletons and shells of planktonic organisms and corals. According to the study published this week in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in the United States, Today, excessive carbon emissions have turned the Milky Way seafloor a murky brown in some hotspots, such as the northern Atlantic and the southern oceans. Dissolving calcite helps to neutralize the acidity of carbon dioxide and prevents ocean water from becoming too acidic. However, levels of carbon dioxide are so high in some areas, and the water is so acidic, the calcite cannot meet the demand and is dissolving at a rapid rate. Researchers with Canada's McGill University say it could take decades to see the full impacts of human-caused carbon emissions on the seafloor, but the outlook is grim. Because it takes decades or even centuries for carbon dioxide to drop down to the bottom of the ocean, almost all of the carbon dioxide created through human activity is still at the surface. But in the future, will invade the deep ocean, spread above the ocean floor, and cause even more calcite particles at the seafloor to dissolve. Lead author Olivier Solpes of McGill's Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences said in a press release. Solpes noted that the rate at which carbon dioxide is currently being emitted into the atmosphere is exceptionally high in Earth's history, faster than at any period since at least the extinction of the dinosaurs, and at a much faster rate than the natural mechanisms in the ocean can deal with. So it raises worries about the levels of ocean acidification in future. He added, the researchers came to their conclusions by simulating the conditions of the deep sea in the lab. They replicated the bottom currents, seawater temperature, chemistry, and sediment compositions, comparing the dissolution rates from pre-industrial and current times. The researchers determined recent human activity has significantly sped up the process. Just as climate change isn't just about polar bears, ocean acidification isn't just about coral reefs, noted former postdoctoral fellow David Trossman, now a research associate at the University of Texas at Austin. Our study shows that the effects of human activities have become evident all the way down to the seafloor in many regions, and the resulting increased acidification in these regions may impact our ability to understand Earth's climate history. Note also the finding of plastics and microplastics in the deep ocean. Nature is the leading British scientific journal. A just published report in Nature concludes that ocean warming is at the high end of previous estimates, with implications for policy-relevant measurements of the Earth response to climate change, such as climate sensitivity to greenhouse gases and the thermal component of sea level rise. Ocean warming is at the high end of previous estimates, of course. Last but far from least, here is the report from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, an independent agency of the United States government. Climate change, how do we know? The short, easy to read NASA report makes it clear that scientific evidence for man-made warming of the climate system is unequivocal. The NASA report will help you to regain your powers of independent thought from deniers funded by the fossil fuel industry. Remember, we live in a world of propaganda. Indeed, propaganda dominates our world and our history books. Most people lack the scientific education to judge. Usually, I can figure out what the climate scientists are saying as I graduated from top-ranked scientific and technical institutions and then went on to Oxford, where my professor was the distinguished physical chemist, Michael Polanyi, teacher of a bevy of scientists who won the Nobel Prize in Science, including E.P. Wigner, Melvin Calvin, and his own son, John Polanyi. You have to decide who to believe, independent scientists who have spent their careers studying climate change or hired guns defending material interests. I understand that scientists, like all humans, can be mistaken in their view of reality, but at this time, the evidence supports the climate scientists, just as the evidence supports the US Surgeon General's report on the link between smoking and lung cancer. The Surgeon General's report did not prevent the material interests from casting doubt and preventing action for 2 decades. According to the evidence we have, we do not have 2 decades before we act on carbon emissions. The material interests have the most reassuring story, but they lack evidence. Humans are, of course, selfish, and they might choose to continue to live well in the present at the expense of the future life of the planet. Our generations will all be dead. If no one is here in the future, what is the bother? Excellent article from Paul Craig Roberts. I hope you all enjoyed that. I'm going to just give you one more little snippet and I'm going to go because I've had a long weekend. No sleep. And so I'm a little bit lacking in brain function. So, Last but not least, I just wanted to give you this article. This is from today. Tropical Storm Xavier makes Eastern Pacific Ocean most active season since 1992. Yet another named tropical storm. The Eastern Pacific hurricane season hasn't been this active since 1992, with Tropical Storm Xavier turning offshore of Mexico. 22nd named tropical storm of the 2018 Eastern Pacific hurricane season formed on Friday night. On average, 15 tropical storms form in the Eastern Pacific each year. After tracking to the north, Xavier will turn more to the west at the end of the weekend and into Monday, according to AccuWeather senior meteorologist Brian Weimer. Rough seas building around the storm will continue to create dangers for boaters and swimmers. This includes residents and vacationers in Manzanillo. Downpours and strong winds can also continue to graze the Mexican states of western Michoacan, Colima, and Jalisco into Sunday night. Localized flash flooding and mudslides may occur. The demise of Xavier will come as the storm tracks westward. Xavier may weaken to a tropical depression by Tuesday before dissipating over the open waters west of Mexico at midweek. And they just keep on cranking because the water is still warm. That is all I have for you in this video. I appreciate your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. As always, if you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.